I really didn't want the day to come when I'd admit this. Half-Life is dead. Probably. With the last actual game release being 10 years ago, and the only evidence that Episode 3 or Half-Life 3, whatever they're running with these days, actually exists in something other than a concept, are some mechanic-focused files leaked alongside Episode 2 mech packs from 2013. It's been increasingly hard to believe that this game will ever come out. Until Friday, August 25th, when Marc Laidlaw, the co-creator and writer of Half-Life 1 and 2, and lead writer of Half-Life 2 Episodes 1 and 2, wrote on his blog a complete, albeit brief, summary of the plot of Episode 3. Names were changed, but it's still pretty obvious what it is, with the final paragraph seeming to address Valve co-founder, president, and meme Gabe Newell. There's a link to the full blog post in the video description, so you can read it yourself. Why would he do this? Why would he do it now? The fact that he changed the names means he probably didn't have Valve's blessing to leak the plot. With Episode 1 and 2 co-writers Chet Falizek and Eric Wolpow leaving the company this year, Half-Life has no writers working at Valve. As of right now, even if there are still people working on programming, building a new engine, art assets, level design, AI scripting, and so on, they don't have anyone working on a story. The biggest thing that made Half-Life different from every other shooter of that era in the first place. Half-Life, for me, and I'm sure many other people, was a formative experience. In a time where first-person shooters were dominated by Quake 3 Arena and the remnants of Doom, Half-Life was a unique experience, except for Deus Ex and System Shock, both RPG hybrids. The first half hour of Half-Life 1 was spent walking around the lab and exploring, and there were characters with actual personalities. There was a story, there were mysteries. For the most part, it was one giant world instead of levels separated by a screen showing you how many points you got. It influenced games for years to come, and kept its community thriving with mod support for years, including Counter-Strike, Team Fortress, and Day of Defeat. Half-Life 2 is a brilliant example of world building, and it had innovative mechanics and proved that physics systems were more than a novelty. It also created the idea of episodic content, something that completely failed with Valve, but has been used to massive success by other companies. It was the game that built Steam. It was what turned it from a joke of an idea at the time, something that most people hated but suffered through just because playing the game was worth it. You might not remember now because Steam has been nearly perfected, but in 2004, especially if you had dial-up, it was the worst gaming experience ever. It took me 2 days just to activate the game and download a patch because the servers were busy. Anyway, a lot of this is nostalgia talking, but it's all true. And it's sad to see something you love die like this. Whether or not an eventual Half-Life 3 will come out, who knows, but if it does, I doubt it will have the same soul. Remember when The Simpsons gradually stopped being good and turned into a sad remnant that just needs to die? Super Eye Patchwolf did a great video about how that happened. The original writing team of about 15 people slowly left the show, and eventually most of the original team was gone and the ratings plummeted.
And watch as we go forward through the years, more and more drop off, with a massive exodus right at the start of Season 8, which is when the ratings for the show would begin their slow decline, with only a tiny percentage of the original staff left by Season 12.
If there's a Half-Life 3 that does come out and it suffers from the same problems as The Simpsons did, I'd rather have nothing. Literally. It's been on a cliffhanger for 10 years and I have little hope that it can be saved at this point. Now, at this point, you have to ask yourself why. What could possibly have caused them a 10-year delay when they said they were going to have a monthly episodic model? Ambitious, and a delay is fine for just a few months, but a decade? What are they doing? Oh, okay. They just don't care. They've gone from the innovators to the followers. Card games are popular, so they need to make one that nobody wanted. If they're that out of touch with their audience, and I don't think they are given the amount of time Gabe Newell's had to not talk about Half-Life, that a card game spin-off is what they proudly show off, they just don't care. With Steam being the platform of choice, and usually the only choice for PC games, they're raking in money, and with trading cards and Counter-Strike, Dota, and Team Fortress 2 items on their microtransaction market, they don't even need to make games anymore. They literally generate money by doing nothing. A card game will have microtransactions, loot boxes, market items, and so on. Half-Life 3 will not. In a weird way, it's kind of like Nintendo catering to the whims of their shareholders. While Valve is a private company, and they're gonna stay that way, they're rolling in money and we'd be stupid not to. They're both out of touch with their audience for the same reason that most companies are. Profit. Nintendo has all kinds of IPs they don't use anymore because Mario. There are also Mario spin-offs. Why do they do this? Because they have to do what their shareholders say, and their shareholders are idiots who don't know what they're talking about. This guy thinks they should get more free stuff because they don't get enough as it is. This person isn't satisfied with the amount of gambling Nintendo offers. This person is angry that they literally do not understand video games, is annoyed that they talk about them, and thinks that they're childish. Maybe you're investing in the wrong company, idiot. And this guy wants to talking about retiring a jersey number of a baseball team owned by Nintendo, but the same number is held by a famous Japanese player. I guess with success comes a certain amount of detachment. They're successful. It's all downhill from here. It's the George Lucas problem. Nobody's there to get them back on track because the success train seems to be going in the right direction, and who's gonna complain? The fans, the media, probably the developers working on some dumb card game, and hopefully the depths of the souls of the people in charge. Half-Life 3 will probably come out someday, just like Duke Nukem Forever did. You know, Gearbox also published two of my favorite games, and they haven't been doing well lately. What do you think? Is this the end? Is it dead? Will it ever come out? If it does, will it be a disaster? Tell me what you think in the comments. And maybe subscribe or something. I don't even care anymore.
After Orange Box, we have to get episode 3 out. We know how the trilogy ends, and there are a bunch of loose ends and narrative arcs that need to come to a conclusion in episode 3. So that's going to be a big focus for us.
Episode 3, what do we know about it? What can you tell us?
From our point of view, there's enough newness in there that we want to sort of spring it on people and say, here's a bunch of things you've never seen before. Have multiple of those.
And that's graphically or in terms of the gameplay, or?
There's stuff that visually hasn't been in games before, and there's certainly a bunch of game elements on the order of Portal that have never been done before.
So even better than the Portal gun in Half-Life?
Yeah.
Really? New gameplay paradigms? Are you still even working on Half-Life 2 Episode 3? When can we micro-invest in it through Steam so it will actually come out?
I really don't have anything to say about episode 3 right now. When we do, we'll certainly let people know, but I don't have anything that I'm going to say.
Are you still doing episode 3? Because I think when people
Yes,
look
of course
at now
we're
the
doing
history
episode
of it,
3.
It's like, people worry, is that going to become Half-Life 3 now? Or these things have taken, longer and longer gestation periods?
You're not going to trick me into saying something that I get email about for the next year.
All right, so there's no, but it is being worked on.
Oh, absolutely.
I will now ask you the world's shortest question ever, Half-Life 2 Episode 3. Thank you.